Can I
Yeah,
get a copy for that website? I'm just collecting all this stuff. I'm going to put it on the website for all of us to have.
absolutely. Stacey herself holds a steadfast belief that we all have gifts and the capacity to far exceed the often arbitrary expectation that society imposes. Stacey works in collaboration with local leaders to improve statewide support and services to enhance opportunities for individuals with intellectual and developed disabilities, their family members, and allies to be productive, engaged members of their communities. Her work focuses on improving organizations' outcomes by utilizing collective impact strategies, person-centered planning facilitation, and advocating for disability voter rights, especially in rural Georgia. Outside of her career, Stacey is the proud mom of 3 amazing young men and a brilliant daughter-in-law. Her middle son, who's 27 years old, has autism and has been the muse for her career. And again, Stacey, we are so pleased and honored to have you, and I will let you take it away. Everybody welcome Stacey.
Yeah. Hi, thank you. Well, I say we just dig in. There is so much to talk about. I picked some highlights. What I would love to do is I wanted to make sure we know that this is a workshop, not a presentation.
Mhm.
So, Angel, with your permission, I'm going to make sure that we work in this shop and that if everybody's up for it, I'm hoping we'll come off of audio and video mute and just let's support each other, because in understanding our civil right to vote as Georgians, and especially as Georgians, if you're a person with a disability, we've got to have our voice heard loud and clear. I'll try my best not to get on my soapbox and keep this to be an educational workshop. It helps if I share my screen, doesn't it? Let's see, we want screen 2. Share. All right. So I kept it to what Angel asked me to do. How's that? That's a little different for me. Voter education workshop for people with disabilities. I did put the Rev Up logo on there. It's been my husband Dan and I talked. It's been probably 9 years. I have been just a coalition member or a co-chair of Rev Up Georgia, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But Rev Up Georgia, if you don't already know, is an acronym. Rev Up is register, educate, vote, use your power, make the disability vote count. So it's specific to supporting people with disabilities to get registered, which unfortunately not for the midterms, but it's not too late for the presidential. But register and then educate, vote, and then use your power. So we will talk about how we can make sure that happens. And again, I do not want questions, comments, or stories held to the end. This is a workshop, and I'd love for it to be a conversation, not sage on the stage, meaning this old woman being the sage on a stage, because I am not all that. What I have done is I've studied for the sake of supporting what I'm calling community connectors. Because what I do know is that this old white woman from Atlanta, Georgia, cannot come into your area saying, I know what you need in your community to get out the vote. But what I can do, and what I'm passionate about doing, is collecting information and giving it to you, the person who is a leader in your community, and equipping you with the tools and the education to talk with your friends and neighbors and take information to your friends and neighbors to help them better understand their civil right to vote. So that's what I'm attempting to do. And I hope we have a really strong conversation. I might have mentioned that today. Angel, I want to make sure of our time. How long do we have today?
We typically run at least an hour. If you need to go over a little bit, that's fine, but we usually can accomplish quite a bit in an hour.
Good, good, good. Okay, that's what I planned for. I just wanted to make sure of it. I keep an election day countdown, and if you get the Rev Up Georgia emails, which I hope you all sign up before the end of this presentation, today we are 20 days out. So if you haven't made a voter plan yet, I hope by the time of our 1 hour today that we've made a voter plan, because we've got 20 days before the election day on November 28th. Intentional pause, right?
Yes,
Use,
absolutely.
yeah, use your power. Use your voice and power the disability vote. In memory of, on the screen is a picture of Galen Tootle, my co-chair, and on beside me at my desk is a chair that I keep for my co-chair, that I still call my co-chair, Galen Tootle, who is a powerful, and yes, I use present tense with Galen because he is still a very powerful force in disability, certainly disability voting rights advocacy in Georgia, because he is still pushing me forward. I can tell you, I want it to sit down and crumble during disability voter rights week when he passed, and he just wouldn't let us, would he? We had to stand up and, for me, pull up my big old panties and keep going, and still doing it. I keep his chair right here with me. So thank you, Galen Tootle, for all you do and all you continue to do from where you are. So why is it important that we have this conversation? And if you've been on the Power of the Disability voting 5-part series, you'll see many of these slides already, but I think it's worth reiterating that there are 7.8 million registered voters in Georgia, 650,000 people with disabilities in Georgia are of voting age. So if you combine those with their friends and families and allies, we are a powerful voting constituency, right? We could really mobilize a disability platform if we do this. What's on the screen, I call it vote tripling, where we take the information we hear today and we tell 3 people, and we ask those 3 people to tell 3 people. Because the good news is, in 2020, when so many of us got together and mobilized, we had a 5% increase. The not so good news that's on the screen is that people with disabilities are 5% less likely to vote than those without disabilities. And there's a lot of reasons that we're going to talk about on the slides. And that's where we need to work with LIFE as a Center for Independent Living and many other centers, because of its accessibility is one of our reasons. At the top of the screen, it says vote. And one of my dear friends, Poi Winnechuckle with the Southern Poverty Law Center, when she advocates for voting rights, she always talks about vote and, because it's not just about getting to the polls. It's getting to the polls and standing firm on the critical issues of the disability rights platform. So vote and what's important to you. There's on the screen, there are a list of, I need to count them. I need to put numbers by them, but I didn't, because they're not hierarchical. It's what's important to you is the critical issue voting accessibility? Is it healthcare access? I know we have Bernard Moore is on the call with us. So is it healthcare access? Bernard, we have on here emergency preparedness. He and I have recently had a conversation about that. Is it health insurance portability? As a mom of 3 boys, middle son has autism. We just went through, he is, you heard Angel share that, he is of age that's past the time where insurance covers him without that fight of him being on my husband's insurance. That was a major fight, and it just shouldn't be. I almost had to get guardianship. The insurance company wanted me to just get guardianship so he could just go on my husband's insurance. Well, that's not right. That's a whole nother conversation. But again, I said I wouldn't get on soapboxes. Rate of pay for direct support workforce. Is it the waiting list for services? We know that it's well over 7,000 again. Transportation's a major issue as we talk about getting out the vote for people with disabilities. Housing, employment, economic security, or social isolation. So I'm bringing this up because we need to get out the vote, but why? Why are you voting? We all need to have our whys. And when you go, not if, when you go to talk to your friends and neighbors about the importance of them getting out the vote, what is their why? So we're going to talk about how you can study the candidates you're wanting to vote for. When you're going to study the candidates, know your why of why you're voting for that candidate. I don't care if you're Republican, libertarian, or Democrat. That's not what this presentation is about. This presentation is about getting to the polls and understanding how to cast your ballot. But make sure that you understand the disability issue you're wanting to vote for, and will that candidate support the disability issue that is important to you? Okay, enough of that. That's a whole workshop in itself, isn't it?
It really is, but it's very important. I love that you brought up the why, because a lot of people will say, why bother? Why should I? And so you've asked me one of the key questions that we hear when people are trying to resist getting out to the polls and making that effort. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Angel, I will send you this whole presentation and you can make that a poster. and
Absolutely.
and add to it, right? If you come up with some others, which my brilliant husband, Dr. Daniel Crimmins, came up with that list, and if there's more, let's add to it. Let's increase the why if there's others. I would kind of like to see home ownership on there, right? But
Absolutely. Yeah.
I know. The importance of the disability vote. Vote for candidates who will work on our issues. I think I might have mentioned that. No candidate will be perfect, but every candidate will have to work with others to accomplish policy changes. Again, that was a bullet that my husband, who used to work on the federal level, um, on the Hill, he put that in there when you have to work across the aisle, that things change on some of those bills. On the screen is something, it's called a buck slip. I don't know why they call it that in the marketing field, but it's a more narrow type little information. Excuse the background music. My Maggie May is my four-legged office managers yelling at somebody. But anyway, on the screen are this, for those who are visual learners, is what I've got. And it's making your voting plan. And this is all on this website that Dan and I put together. So it's making your voting plan, 3 ways to vote: absentee voting, advance in-person voting, or election day voting. And you can get these again off of this website that Angela and I keep hinting around to. We're going to show you in just a minute.
And that Maggie tested for accessibility and she said it was great. I'll let her give some feedback too. But yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay. On
good
this,
job on the accessibility front.
thank you, Maggie. And then on this slide on my screen are two other of these buck slips that marketing people like to call these thinner little one pagers. Finding your polling place is another one I created, and then understanding your ballot. So these are just these small little one pagers that you can use as you do your vote tripling. That's when you're talking with your friends and neighbors about how they can get educated and go vote. So they're kind of flashy for those sighted community advocates. Okay, so the website that we keep talking about, it's power dash the dash disability the dash vote dash Georgia dot mailchimpsites.com. And all of these links I'm going to send to Angel, and we're going to get out to you to make sure that you're able to access everything. All of the links I'm talking about, you're going to have access to. But this website that we put up was, I told somebody I'd rather talk to my family about politics, which just about crumbled my family when talking about politics. So I'd rather talk to my family about politics than ever have to put together another website. So I hope you use it. It was a labor of love, but it's this 5-part webinar series that Dan and I have put together. We came up with the one pagers and the audio and the video, the outline of the presentations for those who need to, their screen reader just needs to read through a Word document of the PowerPoint versus seeing the visual PowerPoint. It's all on this website now. So as you're vote tripling and you want to do a presentation yourself in the community, you can go to this website and you can pull up part 1, making your voting plan, and it's all right there. You don't have to do it. You don't have to create a PowerPoint. You can take what Dan and I did, make it yours. Take what we did, and if you make it new and improved, send us what you did to improve it, because we'll just put it right here. No copyright needed. We did it for you. So how to use this website? We've got the 5 different webinars, and then a summary of the webinar topic, the PowerPoint presentation, an outline in the Word document, the video and the audio of the webinar, and then the one pagers of the webinar topic. The Spanish version is coming soon. We've got an organization that's helping us out with that. So I'd love to pause there and hear what you think. Is that a resource that you would use to do your own presentations, or to look at, to use?
Absolutely. Yes, emphatically yes. I was so excited to see this all put together in one place. And it will be shared far and wide, believe me. Yes, this is wonderful. I'm speaking for myself, and I'll let others chime in.
Bernard,
Hey, Stacey,
yes.
it's Bernard. This is such an amazing resource right here. And as my role expands more into voting advocacy, and especially looking more towards the doing more work going towards the 2024 elections, like this is going to be such an amazing resource to add to like my arsenal of tools as far as my outreach efforts and going to different facilities and everything else like that, trying to support people who are trying to go up there and get registered to vote and use their voice and everything else like that. So this is awesome, Stacey. You
Oh,
and Dan, great job.
good. Good to hear it. All right. I was
This is
trying to, hey,
I was about
yes.
to say, this is Calvin Tinley. I'm a visually impaired individual, but because of eye surgery, I may have my sight restored after I get my glasses. It just occurred a few weeks ago. But to make a long story short, I went to do early voting in Chatham County, and the website you're mentioning is probably a good accessible tool, but you won't be able to use it near voting polls or elections. So you would probably want to get your information before you go, because they make you turn off all of your electrical devices. And I use the site at 1117 Eisenhower, because they don't want the computers on while you're voting. So if you're going to use it, you'll have to prepare before you get there.
That is a great statement, and we're actually going to talk about that, but let's just dive right into accessibility. You can actually use your phone while you're voting. If you need to take a screenshot, so you've voted and you
Yes, I
print
did. I did it Monday.
um and you can print out your ballot while you're at the polls. It's on the Secretary of State's website. You can take a photo of your ballot with your phone, and if you need to, you can use the app that you use. Take a photo with your phone, and you can tell the poll workers that this is legal, and I can show you where to find it. Um, you can take a photo for accessibility before you cast your ballot, meaning before you put it through the scanner, to be sure what is on that printed ballot is what you actually it's what you voted.
Well,
So a
Stacey,
lot of the poll workers don't know this. They're not trained properly. So I'm going to help you to tell you where to find this legal information.
okay.
Is
Because
that
I don't use a ballot. I use a vote, what they call it, a visually impaired ballot, where the screen is read to me by the computer that's casting my ballot. So
okay?
that's why I'm saying they may do it, but I wasn't aware of it, and they didn't inform me that I could. So they actually
Right.
do require you to turn off your phone.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. All right.
yeah.
So we'll talk more towards the end of this. I go into
Okay.
accessibility, but thank you.
All
Yeah,
right. Thank
and don't stay on mute, because this is the kind of conversations we need.
no.
Yeah, so thank you for that. Important election days, last day to apply for your absentee ballot. We're going to talk about absentee is October 28th. Early voting has already started, was started on the 17th. You've got until November 4th. You can submit your absentee ballot October 7th through November 8th, and then election day is November 8th. First, you'll need to make sure your voting registration is up to date. I've been alongside some people who get to the polls, and they come to find out that their registration had been cold. They had been taken out of the registration for whatever reason. They hadn't voted in the last few years, and they go to vote and their registration isn't up to date. So I tell people, just to avoid all of those different kind of issues, just check everything before you go. Go to my voting page. So it's mvp.sos.ga.gov/s/ and check your registration. It's really easy. And then you'll need a form of voter identification, government issued driver's license, or an identification card, but it has to have your photo. On the screen is a screenshot of the Welcome to My Voter page, and there's a long list of 9 different things that we can do from My Voter page. There are a lot of different websites out there that you can use for voter registration and to check the different things, such as your ballot and such. I come back to the Secretary of State's nowadays. I do, because of SB 202 and all the legalities. Polling places change. Early polling places are different than the polling places. And I just feel like I'm going to get up-to-date information directly from the Secretary of State's site. So it's just what I choose. Although you can, there are a lot of different other sites that you can go to. So make your voting plan. Zan Thornton is with Adapt Georgia, and she talks about make your voting plan is as easy, and I'm using air quotes if you can't see me, is as easy as ABC, and then where to vote is the 1, 2, 3. So she attempts to make it as easy as ABC and 1, 2, 3, although we understand that nowadays in Georgia with SB 202, it's not quite that simple, but we're going to talk through it. So making your voting plan, the ABC is A, after you receive your absentee ballot. And we make that that notation because first you have to apply for your absentee ballot. So you request an online, you submit an application for your absentee ballot first. So your absentee ballot or the early voting, sometimes you hear it advanced voting. They use these different words for this early voting, and I use them here so that we don't get confused. And then C, election day. That by far is the easiest, but there's going to be some long lines with that one. So before you go, it's so critically important to study. You've got to know who's running for election in Georgia. And I'm going to keep running through this. I keep checking the chat, and I've got participants up in front of me so I can see if you come off of mute. So I want to hear from you if you've got a comment or a thought. So what's most important to... Yes, please.
This is Kevin Tinley. I was trying to do the Zoom on my Android, but somehow the link didn't work, so I called in on my home phone.
Yeah.
And one of the things I'm going to let all the visually impaired and physically challenged people know, you will need assistance because there is a little form you have to fill out, but that's just the proof of who you are, and that's going to have to be done, visually.
Yes.
My mother and I did it, and to share this with you, the Board of Elections on 1117 Eisenhower Suite E is a good place to go because they're the ones that's going to do anything anyway. So one thing I say, they didn't discriminate against the disabled or the elderly or the so-called normal people. They took 3 from each line. They took 3 from the so-called normal people and 3 from the elderly and disabled line. That way the lines kept moving. So don't think that they just let all the disabled people and elderly people go first. No. They took 3 from each line, and they did it continuously all day. It didn't take long. Once you got in there, you were done in about 15 minutes.
Oh,
but
wow.
It was a real quick process.
Good. Good. That is great to hear. So is that...
And the number, excuse me, is, let me give you that so you can pass it on to someone who may need, is 912 area code 790 1520. They can even give you more information about voting. That's the Board of Elections.
Good.
912-790-1520.
Perfect. That's actually in this presentation. So I love it. I mean, not, well, you'll see in just or I will share in just a minute. So before you get there to sign that piece of paper, and tell me your name again.
That was Calvin
Calvin,
Tinley.
Calvin Tinley, I'm sorry. I was
That's
muted.
fun. That's good. So, before
Calvin
you,
Tinley, look, the thing is, we're going to need some assistance.
right,
They're not going to do it all for us electronically, but the
no,
little paperwork, I basically think they wanted your state ID or your
right,
driver's license, like you mentioned,
right,
and then they entered that information. Once you get inside, then they give you your ballot.
right,
It's not going to take long, but you
right.
will need assistance if you have no vision or visually impaired. But it will not take long to fill out. I promise. Maybe 2 minutes. 2
Perfect.
minutes.
But what I want people to understand, Calvin, is before you get there, is you know what you're voting for. You know who you're
There
voting
you go.
for and what you're
There
voting
you go.
for. So as a
That's it.
person with severe dyslexia, I want to be sure I have my own learning disability, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Pretty significant ADHD and severe dyslexia. So I print my ballot and I choose to sit with my husband and we go over each candidate and make sure that I know what that ballot's going to be before I go. And on my screen, I'm sharing with people how to find their sample ballot. So I go
There
to
you go.
yeah, I go to my voter
you go.
page and it's pretty simple. They just ask for first initial, last name, county, and date of birth. Click submit. On the screen is again a screenshot of the welcome to my voter page. From there, once
Yes.
your voter registration information, you've put in you've entered the welcome page, you can click view sample ballot. There's a dark blue button. They kind of keep it hidden a little bit. A dark blue button at the bottom right of the page of your voter registration information. And on my screen, on my voter registration information, you can see that my status is active. So I can see that I'm an active voter. It has my street address has been redacted. And at the very bottom, I've got it highlighted and arrows pointing to it, view sample ballot. I can click that button and there's going to be a pop-up screen that says view general sample ballot. And it's in the very middle of my screen. I can click that and click yet another screen, view in new tab, and I can print it. And then I can print my ballot. They even have some toggles that I can make the print larger and that will help me with being able to see it a little better. So the first toggle button has a language and accessibility toggles at the top of the 3 toggles. So it can be English or Spanish. I don't know if many people know that. The second toggle button allows you to choose the text size and the color contrast, if that helps you at all. And then the third button is for accessibility information. I was very impressed to see that. So they have this whole accessibility statement on the website. Well, I was happy to find that. My point is, go to my voter page and print your ballot before you go and go through line by line, because I'm going ahead a little further. There are 4 statewide ballot measures that require approval according to the state constitution that are in addition to the candidates. And those are the things that, as a person with a learning disability, that when I would not print my ballot before I would go to vote, I would just study the candidates and then I'd go vote and not realize that there were referendums that I needed to know about before I would go vote, and I wouldn't understand what they were asking me. So now I've learned to slow down, print my ballot, and make sure that I know, for instance, on the screen, there are 2 constitutional amendments that were passed by the Georgia State Legislature. First, would it suspend pay for public officials if they were suspended from office for being indicted for a felony? The second would allow for local governments to grant temporary tax relief for properties that were damaged or destroyed for a disaster. Those kind of things I needed to look up and study. What would that mean for people with disabilities? Does it have an influence or effect on people with disabilities? I needed to study these statewide ballot measures before I went to vote. So these are the things that I needed to make sure you know to go and print your ballot and look to see what's on your ballot before you go vote. Before we go on to the next one, are there any questions you have? Do you already know about that? Did you know about the accessibility of printing your ballot?
They give you a review session before you print your ballot on the visually impaired machine. What they do is they let you review it.
Right.
A lot of the things you were talking about, Stacey, those were for people with like an absentee ballot or want an absentee ballot. But the technology that I used was based on voice assistant, and it's called a visually impaired ballot. And the machine actually reads the ballot, but you don't choose it. It walks you through the steps on what to do. So you can't print the ballot until you have gone through it, but it gives you options. Just like your Android or your iPhone, it'll make sure it'll give you steps to prevent you from not making sure. It's like
Yeah.
giving you options to go back and review. If you have a problem, they have assistance or attendants in there that you can reach out to, and they will help you. Like I
So I
say, I
think,
recommend for anybody to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Calvin, what I'm talking about doing is before you even
before, yeah,
Right.
I'm talking about doing this from home before you
That's what I'm
even.
saying. I did what you said about the
Okay.
reviewing or researching.
Yeah,
But
there we
once
go.
I got down there, then like I said, they told us we had to turn the phones off, so I didn't argue. But I was basically reading along with the computer that they
Right.
gave me as a visual impaired ballot. And before you can print your ballot, it'll ask you, do you want to review your ballot? And I said yes. So I went back to it just like you're suggesting and
Right.
made sure every person I wanted or every amendment that I wanted to correctly choose, I made sure of it before I printed the ballot. So you have a fail safe. You
Good.
have a fail safe.
Perfect. Right.
And
Right.
Georgia is one of the few states where the hearing impaired, the deaf or hearing impaired are being treated as equal citizens.
Right.
One of the very few states. I think it's like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So we all get a chance.
We just need to have them step up for people who are low vision and blind, because we
Well, they're
still don't.
trying. They're trying.
Yeah, you're just sweet. So where can I cast my ballot and have my vote count? What we need to do is be sure that people understand that most places you don't go the same polling place for early voting that you do for day of elections. So I wanted to be sure that everybody knows where to go for early voting if it's not the same for your election day. So where to go voting, again, I give nods to Zan Thornton again with Georgia Adapt for the 1, 2, 3. She came up with the ABC, and now we're going to talk about the 1, 2, 3. They can do a county drop box. Now, because of SB 202, every county has a drop box, albeit inside and behind locked doors versus where they used to be out, where you could just drop by. They are locked. So you can do a county drop box if you do absentee ballot, or you can go to your, listen to my words, this is important, your county's early voting location. So if you decide to do early voting, it has to be within your county that you live, or your assigned polling location for the election day. So number one, your Dropbox locations. You don't need a stamp if you decide to use your Dropbox. However, I just want to brush over some of the highlights. Not all early voting locations will have a Dropbox. Just some of them. There only has to be one Dropbox per county. You just need to remember that. And that's for if you choose absentee ballots. I'm gonna to go through some of these pretty quickly because I'm watching the time. You can find your county Dropbox location on the My Voter page again. Go to your My Voter page, first initial, last name, your county, and your birthday. Find your county Dropbox at this top of your My Voter page. There's this dark blue bar, and it has My Voting Location is one of the options in that top blue bar, and you click on My Voting Location. From there, at the very bottom, as you can see, they keep you on your toes. At the very bottom of My Voting Location, they have a dark blue button that says Absentee Ballot Dropbox Locations. You can click on that and it'll give you a whole list of absentee ballot, Dropbox locations in your county that you can go by, and it'll let you know the operation hours and even give you directions to your Dropbox in your county. Now, I happen to live in Atlanta, so I had a whole long list, but there has to be at least one per county now. So here's some of the questions that I kept getting, and then I went to, it's called Georgia Voter Guide. I really like this resource. That much of the information on that website that Angel and I kept talking about, a lot of that information came from My Voter Guide that I give you a link to here. Can I return someone else's ballot to a Dropbox? I get that question a lot, and it's a yes, but you can return someone else's ballot if you are a blood relative, or if you live in the home with them. You can even return someone else's ballot to a Dropbox if you are their caregiver. So those are the different the different by law that will allow you to return someone's ballot to a Dropbox.
Stacey, is
Yeah.
that something that a third party could challenge?
Yes. Great. Good to have you here, Neil. They certainly can. And then I can take you back to the law that allows, and I can get this to you, Neil. I can take you back to the law that will allow all of where I'm getting this information that's on the screen, that will allow another person residing in the same home as the voter. This is in SB 202. It's written plain language, actually, which is odd that I can read it and understand it. So yes, it could be challenged, and we can take this on easily. Did that answer?
It did. Do you anticipate challenges like that delaying the certification process?
I don't expect the Dropbox. So personally, you're asking Stacey Ramirez, I don't expect Dropbox challenges delaying it. What I expect is the challenges in the polls delaying it, honestly.
Thank you.
They have made, and I'll show you where you can challenge. They have made challenging voting very, very simple. But as I'm watching the time, Angel, I promise I'm watching the time, they've also made it very simple for us to report lack of accessibility, very simple. So in the same form where we can challenge, they or anybody could challenge a vote, we are also able to report lack of accessibility, or if say a poll worker were to tell someone that they're not allowed to bring out their phone if they have low vision, and the poll worker said that they weren't allowed to use their phone app to review their ballot before that was cast, that could be reported, and I'll show you in just a moment where we can report that. So great point. Thank you, Neil. Can I return my ballot to a drop box in any county? That is no. Your vote will not be counted and your voice will not be heard. It has to be in your county of residence if you're going to use the drop box. All right. So I'm going to run through some of these others real quick. Your early voting location, you can go to many different early voting locations. You do not have to vote in an assigned poll location during early voting. It just has to be within your county is the issue. So early voting is on the screen, the 17th of October through the 4th of November. There is two mandatory Saturday voting, the 22nd and the 29th. And there are 2 optional Sunday voting, but you have to check with your local board of elections. And it sounds like you guys have a direct connection with Calvin. Thank you, Calvin. To find your early voting location, you go back to my my voting page, which I might have mentioned that already. There's that blue bar at the top. On the blue bar, you look at my voting location. At the very bottom of voting information, you'll see a button that says early voting poll locations. You click on that, and there's a list of all the early polling locations with the hours and the directions of how to get there. So once you know how to navigate my voter page, it's kind of easy and it makes sense. You just have to know how to navigate it. Again, you'll need photo ID. As Calvin already said, they offer audio ballots for voters. If you need help with your ballot, you can ask a family member or friend. You can actually ask anybody you want to help you, as long as they're not a candidate or related to a candidate, or they're not in a union, which there's not that many unions in Georgia, are there?
Stacey, it's called the visually impaired ballot, and it's basically an audio reader. It's a special ballot just for visually impaired, and it's easy to use. I promise you, it won't be a problem.
Perfect.
It won't be.
Thank you, Calvin. The advantage of voting early, I would say, especially in rural Georgia, is transportation. Setup, if you don't have your own transportation, is setting up the transportation. Seems to be, when I'm talking with people in rural Georgia, is getting there. If you're uncertain about your voting plan, voting early seems to be the best option.
It does. And it's also a problem in urban areas where, you have paratransit and cat mobility, things like that, that people are utilizing that are overburdened and are unreliable. So people are reluctant to use them. And I do know we have some options for transportation for election day. Do you know if those are available for early voting as well, or just election day?
I do. I was just talking again. I've mentioned Zan Thornton several times. So, and I will get this to you. Zan Thornton with Adapt has a van that if we get 3 or more people together, especially with a Center for Independent Living, that she will come and take people together, not on election day, but she's doing early voting transportation.
Great.
So Zan with Adapt will use her van to do transportation. And then New Georgia Project is working, I think, in your area. In fact, Jessica Mathis was just yesterday used New Georgia Project's transport rides to the polls to go to early voting yesterday to vote. So I know that both of those are working well. Did that help?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. And with just a few minutes left, I am going to required accommodations. On the screen is a poster that, Neil, I think you actually helped a little bit on this one, welcoming voters with disabilities. I worked with Rev Up, worked with the Southeast ADA Center to create a poster that it can just be printed 8.5 by 11 for poll workers, welcoming voters with disabilities, talking about what the poll workers should know about outside the polling place, inside the polling place, service animals, assistance with interacting with people with disabilities, remembering the golden rule. So it's the highlights, and it goes into some pretty detailed bullets targeting the poll workers, educating the poll workers, because what we do know is their training does very little to train them on supporting voters with disabilities. So at 2 o'clock, what I was going to do is to ask that, we'll go back to this one, that since you guys already know your local elections office, is that you go to the website that I'm going to send you a link to, that Angel and I we're talking about. We've got that sheet, that poster for poll workers, and that we start to work intently with our county elections office to be sure that our elections office are as accessible as possible. And we get this poster up so that the poll workers understand accessibility, and we don't have anyone ever saying you can't take your phone out if you're a person of low vision, and you're choosing to vote where you can use your phone to take a snapshot and use your own app, because that is a civil right, and that's the right of a person who is low vision to be able to use their phone if that's the way they choose. It's just that poll worker wasn't educated in that case. So there's so much more. As you can see, we could have gone on for a whole nother hour. And there's a whole section on the Secretary of State's website about voting assistance for people with disabilities. But I do see that it is after 2, and I don't want to keep you longer than just because of my passion for voting rights of people with disabilities. Would be happy for you guys to join us. Let's see, today's Wednesday, tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Rev Up Georgia, let me get to that one. Rev Up Georgia will be, go up, here we go. We'll be meeting at 10 to 11 to talk about some of the issues around accessibility for voters with disabilities, and then perhaps dropping a bill, the disability voter right Bill of Rights for next year. And we've been talking about that for several times now and wanted to bring that back up as we're looking at coming into the midterm elections next
Mhm.
year.
Yeah, I encourage everybody to attend the Rev Up sessions. They really are. They're educational, they're fun, they are a way to connect, ask questions, bring up good points, be part of the solution to some of these barriers. So it's just a phenomenal resource that we should really be taking advantage of. And for those that can attend, I hope that you do.
Good. So again, there was so much more we could have talked about. An hour just doesn't cut it nowadays with voting in Georgia.
Well, you managed to cover quite a lot, and I know that the accessibility is really important. And one of the last things that you covered, which is making sure that that poster and that information gets to the polls before you do, because you don't want to show up and have it not be accessible and have to either feel intimidated or feel like you have to stop and fight for your rights while all you're trying to do is cast your vote. So I think it's very empowering to know that these tools are out there and you still have time to make sure that your polling location is educated, be proactive. I would encourage you. These are resources to take advantage of. I know where I vote, not early voting, but my regular polling place did a very poor job of being accessible last time. So I want to make sure that this gets into their hands as well.
Good, good, good. I will send it to you separately. I will send you the PDF along with the links and this PowerPoint, Angel, so that you can get this back out to the folks. And
That
we
sounds
can.
great.
All right. Well, thank you for this opportunity. I greatly appreciate everybody taking this afternoon to be together.
And thank you, Stacey. I could have sat here for a whole nother hour with all this wonderful information, but you did a remarkable job of covering a lot of what needed to be talked about. That sample ballot is really important because you want to be prepared, knowing your location, making sure that you know that you're going to the right place and getting out of your own way in order to get this done is doing something like this, which is participating in education events that prepare you to go and cast your ballot.
Definitely. All right. So I'll put all this together and get it right out to you before I call it the sand starts flowing in.